Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast. We're talking Chiefs with the people in the business that know them so well. That's columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian and beat writer Jesse Newell. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. All right, guys, 7 straight trips to the AFC Championship Game for these Kansas City Chiefs. 2018 is when the streak started. The Chiefs have won 5 of them. So they're one behind the New England Patriots, who went to 8 straight AFC title games. The Patriots were 5-3 in their 8 straight appearances. So the Chiefs can actually better the Patriots' record if they get there an 8th time next year. Their Chiefs are 4-2 now. So if I put it into a little perspective, what it means for the Chiefs to have this incredible run.
Well, I can't help but think of this, Blair. This incredible run is the most stark of contrasts to the Chiefs' entire history in a lot of ways, other than, a pretty charmed 1960s for the Chiefs. And so in between, for decades and decades, the Chiefs couldn't even get to one of these games. And that's the thing that's so striking. I do remember this, and I'd be interested if everybody else feels this way. I remember when they got to the AFC Championship against the Patriots that year in Mahomes' first season, and they did suffer another one of those bizarre losses. I remember feeling like, yeah, but this is different than the rest. This is the start of something, not the continuation of something. And the reason you had to feel like that was because of Patrick Mahomes. I'm curious if you guys remember feeling that way in real time. I think that's an interesting question that we've now come to see have fruition here. And just the last thought on it, Blair, is, it would not be anywhere near as meaningful if they hadn't won as many of these as they had, right? And that's the other part of the equation as we sit here seeing them on the cusp of, the next step in the potential three-peat.
Well, I think Tom Brady saw it that way that day, right? He went into the Chiefs locker room after the game to greet Patrick Mahomes, and I think we all viewed it exactly the way he viewed it, was this passing of the torch. This was probably the last time he was going to get by Patrick Mahomes. Now, he beats him in a Super Bowl, a couple of years later, so he was wrong about that. But, I thought that until Houston got up 24-0 the next year in the playoffs, which we all talked about this last week, but not on the podcast. We had the 5-year anniversary of that game, and that game is what really launched, I thought, this team forward as much as anything, because if you look at their playoff history, it's all sorts of comeback wins. It's all sorts of adverse situations that they come back anyway. And it's not just coming from behind, but it's the quarterback being injured. Like, they've experienced some stuff in the postseason and won anyway. And that was the first game that happened. And I talked to some guys last week about that game, and they all talked about the fact that nothing ever seemed insurmountable for this team again. And even though there's so few players left over from that day, Mike Pennell was the only defensive starter that day who's still on the Chiefs. Chris Jones was out. Derek Nottie didn't start, and Mike Pennell has since gone and come back. So really nobody has consistently started in that game defensively. And offensively, you just have Kelsey, McCole Hardman, and Patrick Mahomes. So there's not a lot of guys who played in that game, but I still think that feeling has never left this Chiefs team of always feeling like you'll pull it out in the end.
I think you make a good point, Vahe, though. I remember growing up in Kansas, in 92, 93, and the Chiefs making the AFC Championship game against the Bills was a huge deal in the area because it just hadn't happened in forever. And so, as you're talking about 7 straight, they made it again. And, people like me and Sam have kids that have not experienced a year without a Chiefs Super Bowl. It's harder to remember that. But for us that are old on this call and for us that have been around these parts, we can remember that when there was time oh my gosh, they had a once in a decade type of season. They made the AFC Championship game and lost to the Bills. Yeah, that puts into pretty clear perspective what this Chiefs team is doing, this Chiefs dynasty is doing, and obviously it's something that shouldn't be taken for granted.
Hey, we forget that in that loss to the Patriots, the Chiefs had a heck of a comeback in that game and almost a miracle finish, getting themselves in. What was it? It was 14-0 at halftime. I think they were down and rallied, and of course the D4 offsides, but they got a long bunker field goal to send it to overtime.
24 points in the fourth quarter, Blair.
Yeah, it was an amazing comeback, and you're right. I remember Vahe. We were there that night. I remember have a sense this actually absolutely could be the start of something big. I also remember how much all of football America wanted the Chiefs to beat the Patriots that night because the Patriots were the old guard and they were winning all the time, and tired of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and now based on reaction I've seen a lot this year, and certainly after the win in the wild card round over the not wild divisional round over the Texans, people seem to be tired of the Chiefs a little bit, having a little too much success. Maybe getting the benefit of a call or two on the field. I'm sure we've all noticed that.
I wonder, I can't identify the exact tipping point of when this went from, oh, the Chiefs went 50 years without a Super Bowl and everybody loves Andy Reid. It's time. You can see my audience agrees with me.
Probably the commercials the 55 State Farm commercials that Patrick Mahomes and I remember that sort of, whatever, a decade ago or so, where it felt like you could not get a commercial on television without Tom Brady in it. And so there's a fatigue factor that happens. And, being truthful, Blair, with you, like, obviously, I think all of us on this call would agree that the Chiefs get all the calls narrative from watching every single game is so overblown, so crazy, just one of those social media things that divides us. You know what I mean? If you're in one corner, you're in one corner, in one corner, you're the other. But, just being told to you guys, like, I thought the Chiefs did get the benefit of a couple calls against the Texans. That probably was the number one example of the entire season. I thought that the Chiefs got some calls. So I guess two things can be true at once, but sometimes that nuance isn't exactly going to, move up the way of the headlines. So that's sort of where the Chiefs stand right now. And I would definitely imagine the haters out there will be watching this game to see just how many calls the Chiefs are going to get coming up on Sunday as well.
I thought this was different because you had players and coaches talking about it. This has been an exhausting social media conversation all year long, and it stretches into last year and the year before, because exactly what you said, Blair. People are just, the Chiefs should wear this as a badge of honor that they have this effect on people. But to hear a coach say that they knew they were going to play against everybody, or that the Will Anderson said they knew it was going to be like this, like, when the statistics don't support that at all. It's very easy to look into whether or not this is actually a true thing, and the stats suggest or evidence that it's not. And if you're a head coach who only gets so many hours in the week to prepare your team for a game, I'm stunned you would spend any of those hours talking about the referees to your team to prepare for a situation where you're not going to get calls, specifically when that statistically is not the case. And I could understand, let's say, Jesse going into Allen Fieldhouse and potentially having your team prepare because there's actually some statistical evidence of that. When there's none here in the NFL, it just stuns me that a coach and players, like, why you would want your players to be at all focused on that going into a game. It was stunning to me, the comments that came from the Texans side after the game.
And even on the broadcast, we have the feed on in the press box, but we're not listening to the broadcast. And didn't Troy Aikman have a "oh, come on" or something that was disparaging to the officials?
What I don't know, it's hard to quantify, I guess, is how much of this sort of narrative does get driven by, the guys who have the mic for millions of people. But I suspect it's a factor. And I think when you repeat the lie often enough, it becomes a thing. And it is, there's no doubt it's connected to just pure resentment of the Chiefs, to go back to where you started this, right? One way or another. I thought it might not happen like that if the Chiefs had such success, just because, we see Patrick Mahomes, for instance, day in, day out. I think he's a pretty winsome guy, a pretty admirable guy that I think few would dislike if you're around him. But now you can see, I'm sure there's entire social media memes of penalties called on Prince Patrick and the protection he gets. And I think that could probably be fairly well debunked too, although I think we might see some examples that have gone his way.
I honestly, Blair, if you were tuned in later in the game, the Dalton Schultz catch down the sideline, Troy Aikman had a similar response to that one. Like, I don't see how that's a catch. The guy's juggling it. He was basically going at it with the rules official as well. And so I don't think it's bad to show emotion in these things. I don't think it's bad to exclaim things. But again, when it comes to Patrick Mahomes and the roughing penalties, obviously that's going to increase the discussion on these sorts of things to a different level. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, Patrick's got to wear some of this. Like, the late slide, like, he knows what he's doing. The flail out of bounds, he knows what he's doing. So some of this, I really don't have much sympathy for him. And like I said, more than any other game this season, I thought that the Chiefs did benefit from calls in this past game against the Texans, which is just a little bit unfortunate because we just saw this is ESPN's most watched game, NFL game of ever, I guess. So a lot of eyeballs were on this game. And again, if you hear the social media buzz and you don't really know the reality of the situation, and then you see that game, you think, well, that's exactly how it was supposed to play out. I don't think that's the reality situation, but I do think that the Chiefs did benefit. And obviously Patrick Mahomes did play in a certain way in this particular game that maybe wasn't like some of the other ones. That is going to draw a little bit of criticism.
Well, a lot of other things happened in the game as well. Especially Travis Kelce. Heck of a game for him. Playoff Trav, killer Trav, showed up for this one and 117 yards receiving. What was it? Was it 7 receptions, 7 of 8 targets, something like that? And the touchdown on the play of the game, the falling down Mahomes, finding Kelce in the end zone for the 11-yard touchdown. So, listen, what we've come used to seeing from Travis Kelce in the postseason, isn't it? We've gotten so many of these games, and now we have them like consecutively. It's to the point now where we expect Travis Kelce to come up with a big statistical game and have a major impact on this game. Why was it different in the playoffs for Trav than it was for a lot of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I'm not exactly sure about that. I mean, I think getting the rest certainly helps him ahead of the season, of the postseason, and 24 days off. I mean, he's on a very short list when you rank the guys who could have stood to benefit from that the most, and I think you see the effects of that. But this wasn't a Travis Kelce we saw at all during this regular season. I mean, he only had 100 yards once, and it was exactly 100.
It took him 14 catches, I think, to get that.
Yeah, I mean, he was not at all a weapon after the catch this year. I mean, he was less than 4 yards after the catch per reception this year. I mean, it was the lowest of his career. And it's amazing how many times Jesse and I have looked at each other in the press box after Kelce tries to make something happen after the catch, and we're like, just fall forward. Like, get the 2 extra yards because you're incapable of breaking tackles anymore. His last 3 years in the NFL, he's forced 23, 25, and 20 missed tackles. This year, he forced 3. And on that one play against the Texans, he forced 2, which is the first time all year he's made 2 guys miss on the same snap. So this might be a Travis Kelce that we're accustomed to seeing in the postseason, which you're right, Blair, it is. Like, he's not had less than 71 yards in a game in his last 14 postseason appearances. It's remarkable. But this was even different level for him. And also, I think because we've seen it so frequently over those 14 games, such a long stretch, I do think it gets lost that this isn't normal for a 35-year-old to be doing this. And as you guys know, because I was looking it up in real time in the press box after the game, there's not a 32-year-old tight end that's ever had the game that Travis Kelce just had. The best one previous to what Travis Kelce, the 35-year-old, just did was what he did as a 34-year-old last year in the AFC Championship game when he had 116 yards against the Ravens. And Blair, you were right about the number, and I actually forget it, but you guessed it exactly right. It was like catching all 11 passes thrown his way. And you also pointed this out, that his catch percentage, I mean, he catches 82% of his targets in the postseason, and it's 72%, which is a great number in the regular season. And there's no question that he's a different guy in the postseason.
Came up in clutch moments, too, guys. We did the details this week with Brett Tavo, great analyst that we break down the film with. That last possession, or not the last possession, the possession where they were up 13-12 and had to have the touchdown. Kelce had 3 catches, including the touchdown. Some interesting details Brett pulled out of that one. One of those plays, Kelce chipped, and because he chipped and tried to help out on Will Anderson, he got on his route late, and so it kind of fooled the Texans a little bit. Their zone defenders kind of moved back, and then you got to watch it. Patrick Mahomes with his eyes just directly looks right at Juju Smith-Schuster to throw the ball to him over the middle. And instead, at the last moment in the same motion, throws it to the side to Travis Kelce. And these two defenders converge on Juju, like hit him to tackle him, and the ball's going the other way. So give Mahomes some credit on that one. There's another choice route where Travis Kelce has the ability to maneuver the middle of the field and get open. He sees the defender's hips a certain direction. He knows if he fakes outside and come back inside, takes advantage of that space. And I think the Chiefs schemed that up a little bit. It looked almost like a basketball play where the Chiefs' three of the other receivers kind of just went out to the outside, like spreading out on the 3-point line. But Kelce wins. It's so interesting. Brett called Travis basically on that play like a European basketball player, or maybe like a Perry Ellis, if you will, where like it's taken a long time. It's taken forever, but he's just got guile. And you can see Mahomes, left tackle's getting beat slowly. He's waiting like, Travis, make a cut. Finally, he did. And Mahomes hits him over the middle, a big catch. And then, listen, that touchdown, Travis Kelce was not open. He just wasn't. Mahomes, while leaping in the air, saw that one defender's hips were slightly turned in one direction and threw the ball right by his ear to Travis Kelce to an open space and basically threw him open. So a lot of credit to go around there, but those two guys in these situations, I don't know there's been a better duo in NFL history, and we saw why in this past game as well.
That's amazing. Amazing. But did it come at the expense of production for the wide receivers in this game? Jesse?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, listen, me and Sam have made no bones about we think that the Chiefs' offense has been different when Hollywood Brown came back. And I know a lot of people were eager to see what does it look like with DeAndre Hopkins in the playoffs. And I just mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster, but those guys, 0, 0, and 0 catches. And so it's going to have to change against the Bills. It will change against the Bills. Sam pointed this out earlier when we were talking. And, the Bills, one of their weaknesses is secondary. And Blair, you kind of spoke to it, that one of the Houston strengths is secondary. So I could definitely see the Chiefs sort of trying to scheme things up in the middle of the field for their tight ends, hoping you can pick on a nickel corner or on a safety for the Texans. But they're going to need the receivers to play better in this game against the Bills. And again, if you're talking about strength versus weakness, this is one the Chiefs should have in their arsenal. The receivers against the secondary, the tight ends are against the secondary, and they're going to have to take advantage of that, or it's going to be a long day against the Bills.
It's really interesting. I know one of us got into it. I can't remember who, but it's very interesting how close those two connections with Hollywood Brown were. And, maybe a little win factor on the first one. That was bang, bang call on catching that other one. Either one of those goes, we're probably looking at this a little bit differently. But I think, sort of to Jesse's point, there's some chicken and egg in all this, right? I mean, it seems pretty clear that Patrick's most trusted go-tos are Worthy and Kelce at this point. Obviously, Kelce first, but I mean, you guys have written a lot about the arc of Worthy's development, but that to me is an amazing thing too, to have come to this point where it's been 5, 6, 7 weeks now, right, where he is really trusted by Patrick. So room for more there too, but I obviously agree that they're going to have to be more diverse in this game.
Houston had a terrific defense. There's no doubt about it. The Chiefs ended up with was it 212 total yards? I think the fewest in a Mahomes playoff game, right? Only ran 51 plays. So it wasn't like there were a lot of opportunities for big plays. And then in the fourth quarter, when trying to preserve the lead, Kareem Hunt was a bigger part of the offense and trying to get him more established. And speaking of Kareem Hunt, Sam, I just have a sense that he's the guy going forward. Is he not among the running backs and not Isaiah Pacheco? Part of it because of Pacheco still wearing the rib protection. But Kareem Hunt, his ability to fall forward, if nothing else, for a couple extra yards, as evidence on that 4th and 1 play, I just see him more as a feature guy going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Pacheco's just not been a great running back since he came back from the leg injury. And then, as you mentioned, he's also dealing with the rib injury. That first game back, he had 7 carries for 44 yards, but 34 came on 1 carry, 6 carries for 10 yards otherwise. And ever since that game, he's not averaged 4 yards per carry in any game, regular season or postseason. Like, it's been a grind for him. And Kareem Hunt just has one very specific skill set, is he's great in short yardage. I mean, it goes back to what you mentioned, Blair, as far as he's great at just falling forward. Like, the first point of contact doesn't bring him down. The 4th down play, I think, other than the most miraculous play we saw was a 3rd down touchdown that Vahe got into after the game. But I think you could make an argument that no play was more important than that fourth down play, because if they get stopped there, that would have been a quick drive after the Texans had held the ball for 15 straight minutes basically in the game. And your defense after halftime had been on the field for 10 straight minutes of the game. Like, that would have been a really tough assignment to expect them on then a short field to take over in that spot and get a stop. To me, I thought that was the key play of the game that really could have gone south for him. And I know Jesse got to talk to Kareem Hunt, because this is not only a statistical story for the Chiefs, I think, as far as which running back should be the guy, but it speaks to, I think, longevity of Andy Reid, of not giving up on players, but also not giving up on people as well.
Yeah, I mean, this means a lot to him, guys. I mean, he's never had this opportunity. He's been open about, in the past, even when he was pulled over in Cleveland, he said he should have been in the Super Bowl when the Chiefs were making it then. So he keeps basically saying the quotes like it's a chance for me to rewrite my story with the Chiefs. So, asked him about that 4th and 1 play, and he said, "Hey, I saw a one-on-one. I saw a big guy in the hole, but I like my chances there." And he did. He spun off the tackle. Speaking of grind, Sam, though, like, I think this is what we talked about in advance when we talked about the Chiefs sticking with Joe Thuney here. I mean, it's going to be a grind. Like, he's doing what they want him to do there, which is like getting beat slower, but there's constant pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and it also costs them their run game. So even Andy Reid today, like, when he was asked about his offensive line, how they performed, like, in Andy Reid lingo, basically said, okay, but like in real terms, it was like not that great. You know what I mean? So this is kind of the dilemma that remains. And I think you said it well last week, Sam, when we're talking about two bad options for the Chiefs. Like, they don't have a great solution right now on the offensive line, and it's going to cost them in one area or the other. But the offense being a grind, I think you're going to have to get used to it a little bit, because that's sort of where they're at right now with their left tackle situation.
Yeah, we're in agreement that it's Joe Thuney the rest of the way, correct? There's no DJ Humphries option unless unless someone gets hurt, which brought up a surprising moment that Wanye Morris was on the inactive list for Houston, which surprised me a little bit.
I love Sam's take on this. I mean, after watching that game, Sam, we know what Andy Reid's going to do. He's going to stick with Joe Thuney. That's at least what I think. But are you any more convinced, Sam, that that's the way they should keep it, especially for a game against Buffalo that's now a coin flip?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm still in the same mindset I am a week ago that we all chatted about, which is I just think Patrick Mahomes it's more of a known commodity with Joe Thuney, is how do I navigate the pocket when Joe Thuney is my left tackle? And I just think there's too much unknown with DJ Humphries. So I don't think either of these guys are great at the position. I think they're both below average. Below average is better than what Kingsley Sumatia and Wanye Morris was giving them. We all thought, all of us reacted to Kingsley Sumatia addressing over Wanye Morris as a result of DJ Humphries being active and healthy. The only rationale I could come up with was Kingsley Sumatia is getting guard reps in practice now. He could potentially fill in for an extra spot. But also it tells me that perhaps they're already considering the future, in which case, like, who do you want to be ready to go and getting more reps in practice for next year? Who do you anticipate when you potentially lose Trey Smith? And maybe a year later when you lose Joe Thuney, who do you want to have said they dress for an AFC Championship game, or they dress for a divisional round game? And I think it's perhaps telling that they've told us it's Kingsley Sumatia is the answer to that.
All right. The Chiefs are a 1.5-point favorite on the opening line against the Bills. And that seems right to me. Kind of a coin flip game. The top two seeds in the AFC going after each other. Over in the NFC.
Sorry to interrupt, Blair. It didn't seem right to Andy Reid. He told us the Bills would be favored in this.
That's right, he did. And we talked to Andy Reid. We're recording this on Monday, and Andy Reid had a Zoom call. And yes, he claimed that he thought the Bills would be favored in this game. Not the case. Who knows what the line will do this week in the Baltimore-Buffalo game? The Bills opened as a favorite, and by kickoff it was or just the next day, right? Baltimore had become the favorite and stayed that way the rest of the week. So, but it seemed right to me. The Chiefs should be a slight favorite on their home field. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen meet for the fourth time in the playoffs, and I want to say the 10th or 11th, throwing in regular season games. A lot going on here in this kind of personal rivalry. Mahomes has not lost a playoff game to the Bills. He's 3-0, but Josh Allen has won the regular season matchup the last 4 times they've played, including this year in Buffalo, the 3 previous years at Arrowhead. So Josh Allen not going to be intimidated by the environment. I'm wondering, Vahe, if the circumstance will intimidate him a little bit.
Well, that's a great question. I guess I would say intimidate would be stronger than I would think. But you just have to wonder what's going on in the souls of people with 13 seconds left when they've been in that scenario before, right? And look, I think Josh Allen's pretty fearless. We know Mahomes is fearless. I think the thing that's kind of interesting here is this, as much as this, we've been thinking about how this cements the Chiefs dynasty if they were to do a three-peat, this is in a way, a very defining moment for Josh Allen in his career. I mean, at this stage, he's a guy who can't get past Patrick Mahomes, and it's, more than a coincidence. It's a trend story. And until he shows otherwise in the moments when it matters most, that's going to be part of his legacy.
Yeah, I saw this earlier. Josh Allen, this will be his 13th playoff game. He's 7-5, has a winning record. That's hard to do, right, as a quarterback. But it took Peyton Manning and Joe Flacco until their 13th game to reach a Super Bowl, and that's where Josh Allen is, needing a victory to get to his first Super Bowl. He's a great quarterback. I don't know if he'll be the MVP. I actually think Lamar Jackson's going to end up winning the MVP for the 3rd time. But it could have been Josh Allen this year. He's had an incredible game, and he beat Jackson head-to-head this weekend. Now he seeks to beat Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs for the first time. And I don't know. It's kind of, to me, like Brady Manning used to be. That was the marquee matchup back in the day, and I guess this one is the marquee matchup now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Josh Allen has done to the Chiefs, and look, even the games that they've lost in the postseason. Now, he didn't play great last January, but the previous couple, he was fine, particularly that 13-second game. I mean, the Bills have won. He was terrific. He was the best player on the field. And the Bills have won 4 of the last 6 games they played against the Chiefs. And the 2 that the Chiefs have gotten are the 13-second game and then this last January in the divisional round, in which case, you need a Tyler Bass missed field goal to avoid needing overtime to win that game. So I said this to you guys, before we clicked record on here, but for all the reputation that Joe Burrow has in Kansas City, and it's in Cincinnati. I think it's nationally that Joe Burrow is this Chiefs killer. Like, Josh Allen is the guy that plays his best football against the Chiefs. And what we've seen the Chiefs able to do, and this is a credit to Steve Spagnuolo, is their quarterbacks don't play at their best when they're playing against the Chiefs, and particularly when they're playing against the Chiefs in the postseason. Lamar Jackson faltered in the AFC Championship game last year. Like, that's pretty typical with these top quarterbacks against the Chiefs. But Josh Allen's the exception. And it's why, even though I thought the Ravens were a better team, I thought they outplayed the Bills pretty badly yesterday, actually, even though the Bills won the game. I mean, the Ravens are are a 2-point dropped conversion away from being tied in the game despite losing the turnover battle 3-0. I just think they're a better team. But I still think, to what Vahe said, like, Josh Allen's going to be the guy who's not intimidated to play the Chiefs because he's beaten them before and he's played well even when he's lost to them.
Real quick, Sam, just to talk about last year's playoff game. That was super low possession. Let's remember that as well. 8 possessions. And Josh Allen went field goal, touchdown, punt, touchdown, downs, punt, and then missed field goal to potentially tie the game. Out of those first 5 drives, it went 70 yards, 75 yards, 15 yards, 75 yards, 75 yards. All 3 of the 75 ones I just mentioned were touchdown drives. So he wasn't too poor in that one either. He has shown up in these games, as you mentioned. And so that's maybe a little bit different than the narrative we think of, but he has played well against the Chiefs.
And I think he's had maybe the singular play of the year in the NFL was his 26-yard touchdown run against the Chiefs on 4th and 2 in the regular season. Just an amazing run. So
the thing about that play too, Sam wrote about it that day, Blair, but I'm glad you brought it up because there's something about that moment that is the opposite of what a lot of things we've seen happen against the Chiefs are, right? Patrick Mahomes ends up having the greatest sphere of influence on the game because of the way he plays and the way Andy Reid uses him. Sometimes other teams either flinch in the moment or don't keep the ball in the hands of the best players. Sam did a nice column, I think, that day from the game, Sam, on why it mattered to have a special player like Josh Allen decide the game instead of leaving it the other way.
Yeah, and I think that'll have some relevance this week too. I mean, Sean McDermott chose in that situation that Josh Allen's going to determine this outcome of this game. I'm not going to let Patrick Mahomes be the guy who decides who wins this game. And that's why the Bills won. And the other piece of that play that I think is relevant for this week, when you look at the three best running games that Josh Allen's had against the Chiefs, the top one he ever had was 88 yards, second most was 72, third most was 68. And he's played against the Chiefs 8 times now. Those three I just listed are the 3 playoff games against the Chiefs. His best 3 running games have all come in the playoffs. Like, he shows a more willingness to put his body on the line against his team because he knows it's not going to just be a luxury. It's a requirement to beat the Chiefs. And it's why when you look at his passing numbers, to Jesse's point last year, he throws for 186 yards in the January game. He leads the Bills in rushing and rushes for 2 touchdowns, 72 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing in the game. And to me, that's what Steve Spagnuolo's entire game plan is going to be. How do I keep Josh Allen from using his legs to beat us?
When against the Texans last week and C.J. Stroud, it was how many blitzes can I throw at him, and how much pressure can we put on him? And with the Bills and Josh Allen, it's more like a spy, right? Leo Chanel, or whoever it might be. You've got to account for Josh Allen on all plays. Okay, guys, great conversation as always. Got to thank Randy Mason and Monty Davis for producing this show, and big thanks to Jesse Newell, Sam McDowell, and Vahe Gregorian on SportsBeat KC, the Stars weekly podcast. We will do it again soon, guys.